Hello, hello, and welcome to the Agile Magician's Bookshelf, live on a Friday evening, a very sunny, clear sky, late summer Friday evening, the 15th of August, here in the Lake District, where we're going to be doing some live readings and talking about tarot, talking about the methodology and the approaches to that. I also want to mention our special offer, which I'll mention at the start, middle and end of this stream, because I want to make sure that people are aware of it in case they haven't taken advantage of the special offer to get a free deck with postage, just to pay for postage, of the Tarot of the Secret Dawn. So we're going to be looking at that. First of all, can people confirm that they can hear me in the live chat? We're doing something slightly different this evening, so if people can confirm that they can hear me. I'm not quite sure about the latency on the chat. There we go. Excellent. So, yes, can we all welcome Tony as our moderator for this evening. Tony has ably volunteered and has relevant experience in moderating, so in case our chats get way too chaotic and unruly, which is going to be very much unlike us, I feel, but just in case, Tony is there for us to keep particularly random strangers at bay and will function as our guardian of the threshold. There have been no glitches tonight, Bill, because Tony is on the case, which is great, and I am trying this differently. I'm actually streaming it straight within OBS with the YouTube live control panel within OBS, so I don't have any access to the chat. It's like I'm a proper streamer or something, and Tony is guarding the chat window for us. So any complaints, anything that's going wrong, anything that you're not happy with, anything that you just want to change in the world, please see Tony. He has volunteered to put all of that right for everyone, no matter what it is. And I will obviously accept all of the praise and good wishes and encouragement and support. That is my job. So, and thanks everyone as well for being a member. I can see plenty of green hats and red hats and yellow hat with Bill there, so thank you very much for being a supporting member of the channel. As I say, we're going to mention this special offer, then we're going to get on with some readings, and I like to indulge myself just to start us with a Philosopher's Stone reading for the current global situation. There are some very big politics going on today that, because we are actual magicians in the actual world, we are not separate to the world. There's a saying about being in the world but not of it, and I think that we are beholden as actual magicians to really be aware of what's happening in the world. Obviously I do not want to discuss politics per se, because I like to look at politics and society in terms of the vast aeons of time, so over periods of 2,000 years at a time, and that makes individual politics within it somewhat, not necessarily inconsequential, but we look at that through a slightly bigger lens. So, let's start then, and then we can take questions. If people want a reading, then I'm happy to do that, along with the usual thing that I will be explaining how I'm going about the reading, why I've chosen a particular deck, how I'm putting cards together, interpreting them, what sources I'm using for that, and so forth, so we can actually have these as proper teaching and sharing experiences, not just a free reading channel, which is certainly not what we are about. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you to Tracy and Bill and Birds and everyone. Sherry, I can see in the chat window there. That's brilliant. Thank you for your... I keep wanting to say thank you for your attention, your consideration, but as the phrase "thank you for your attention to this matter" has become co-opted and politicized, I feel that I want to use it more, but also I want to use it not at all. So, yes, thank you for being here. Let's go with that. Thank you for just being. So the Tarot of the Secret Dawn, this is our deck that we have. We had a load of copies of that we were trying to remove from under our feed in the US and the UK. And so we had a special offer. Unfortunately, and both fortunately, that's proven very, very popular because I did want to make it an absolute win-win. Who would not want to get a unique historical Golden Dawn deck along with the PDF of all of the original manuscripts? And this is actually a real magical deck scryed in 1909 by a adept, not just any old member. Pamela Coleman Smith was not an adept of the Golden Dawn, and but Meakin was, and he developed this tarot deck that was then discovered by Derek Bain in the archives of the Golden Dawn, the actual Golden Dawn archives, and Janine Hall, an actual award-winning artist, portrait painter in oils, was inspired to actually then draw the deck for us, and Tali and I did all of the research and the design of the deck, translating it into something workable from the original notes. And so this is a unique deck. It's a very magical deck, very close to our hearts, and we are offering it for postage only if you subscribe for 1 month, and that's useful to me. That's a win-win-win because that is getting me in with YouTube, and I think I'm already at the threshold, over the threshold of the requirements to get onto this sort of YouTube optimize upgrade thing. It's basically got a rapid touch, as they call it, support line, a more direct line into YouTube, and also involvement in YouTube's plans for the future as far as community building is. And most importantly, we are already recognized as representing tarot alongside all of the other passions and interests in the world at a professional level with YouTube. We have already accomplished that together. So even if the channel went down tomorrow, we have represented tarot very well. So thank you everyone for your subscriptions, because that has helped show that the channel is viable, that we're taking it seriously. We're working with YouTube's community managers and so forth. So that is already now in place, and I believe I'm over the threshold that there's still like 6 weeks, 7 weeks of the boot camp to go, and it's a lot of time and a lot of work on our side of things in order to implement everything that they are suggesting, take part in Discord chat, all of the other things involved in that. But as I say, we are getting tarot represented, and I hesitate to say normalized, because I would never want tarot to be normalized, but it is being given consideration and some respect, more than people just being able to hand wave it away and say, oh, it's something silly that, you know, my friend is into, or that idiots are into, or it's a fraud, or all of the other things that get associated with tarot. So every little moment that we can present and work with tarot in a positive way is another lifting up, as we say, of the spiritual dignity of tarot. So we are on it, and you are part of that. we're almost at 100 subscribers, and it's actually the threshold is the number of lives I do and the number of members only videos that I produce, and the subscription numbers aren't relevant, aren't important, because they obviously want people to try and do the work and to improve their channel and their offering and everything, and I'm certainly up for that. But obviously the numbers of subscriptions reflects people's response to the quality or the interest that they have, engagement with the content. So it's good to be able to show the content is worthwhile in terms of how people want to see tarot represented in the world at large. So finding your people is a great thing. So thank you for being here, and hello to Star as well. And so, again, thanks to Tony and thanks to you all for being here. The special offer is running until Sunday. I did say today, but I'm going to run it until Sunday just to see if we can get 3 more people, and that will get us over 100, which is just a nominal number in order to feel that all of the work of the last few weeks has been responded to and it's working and we're going in the right direction with the channel. So I'm going to do a Philosopher's Stone reading first of all, so please indulge me just for a moment on this, and then I do need to sort these cards out a little bit. I've not had time. I've just uploaded the 3rd of the Anetheon classes to the members only, and I've recorded the first of the videos for the 3rd tier members, of which I think we have about 10 people who are in the 3rd tier membership, called I can't remember what I called that now, conjunction. I think it was like the 3 levels of alchemy that I chose. I knew I should have chosen something that I would remember, but that level is for people who want a little bit more behind the scenes sort of thing, really informal things. And I was yoinking a box out of one area of storage, which is a literal cottage in the woods with a literal magical temple, full built magical temple in the basement with a load of storage of books. And one of those storages of books I yoinked out a couple of weeks ago for something. And so I was sharing today, I filmed me going through the books, talking about the content of that box and the fact that these are actual magical books. And yes, it's okay to post a question, that's fine. So yep, I'm doing readings if it's a question for the tarot cards as opposed to about the tarot cards, but I'm also demonstrating and giving examples of different ways of reading and talking about those with everyone as well. So hello, Asa. I think it is the is it $12.99? Let me just check on the phone and then I'll remember the name as well. Just give me one moment. Because again, it was on the bootcamp that I set all of the membership levels and things like that. So yeah, it is conjunction. I did get it right. That's incredible. That is the $12.99 tier. And basically that is for those who really want to get a bit more insight into what's going on in real time, behind the scenes, what I'm preparing now for later. And so it's a bit more immediate, I guess, with the work that we're doing. And some people are not interested in that, and that's fair enough because we have all of the content. But if you're interested in what's actually going on, then I'm going to be making a few videos along the way and there'll be previews of stuff. I'll be talking about the projects that we're currently doing and things like that. So that's part of the conjunction level. So yeah, it's about $15. I would guess it's £12.99 sterling, and obviously the rates are shifting one way and another at the moment. We tend to price most of our stuff in dollars because most of our audience are based in the US and Canada. But for YouTube, because of the way the accounts work and so on, that is in pounds sort of natively. So are Ari and I meant to be together? So this is a very common question that we get asked with the tarot. So we tend to look at it from not so much a predictive point of view, but from empowering you to have the best sorts of relationships that you can in the world. So I don't do readings for a yes, no, or Fred and I meant to be together, but I do recognise that that's a very important question. It's a very emotional question. It's got a lot of consequence to you and so forth, but I am prepared to answer a question which is more like, how can I, what steps do I need to take to be in the best sort of relationship for me long term, if that is what you're interested. And if that reading seems to you to point to everything you know about a particular person and the particular state that your current relationship is in, then that's all well and good. But quite often, I have to say, my gut observation from that is it is usually not the person that someone is asking about. I have a little story actually about a reading that I did, and it is a good example. I think I quote it in Philosophy Squared maybe, where I was doing a festival here in Keswick, where I live. It was an open field. It had been throwing it down with rain, as it often does, and it was an agricultural festival. And I had, it was terrible. I just basically rocked up in a hiker's tent that I set up in the rain, and I just sat there with a deck of cards. I didn't even really have a sign other than one I made. My heart really wasn't in it, and I barely did any readings. I was sat there maybe 6 hours, 7 hours, and it was getting late in the day, and I was packing up, and this group of kids came to me, and they must have been in their maybe mid-teens, 15, 16, 17 maybe. And they wanted a reading, and they were all sort of egging each other on, and every alarm bell should have been going off for me. That's not the sort of reading or situation I would usually do. But I had had enough. My state of mind was, this is it. I've had enough today. It was a ridiculous idea. I was beating myself up. I was very unhappy. And yet I said I would do a reading. And this girl was almost like pushed out of the crowd. And she said, and her boyfriend was stood next to her, and she said something like, can you tell me, can you do me a love reading, was the way that she worded it. And of course, I shouldn't have done it given the situation. I shouldn't have done it given the age, range of the people asking and the person asking. I shouldn't have done it certainly in front of everyone, because I couldn't even be bothered to say, let's make this a personal reading. I don't do readings with other people watching. That's not the way to do these things. And I was so tired, I was so grumpy that I just ignored about 5 thresholds, 5 boundaries that should have been in place. And I started to say, yes, we can have a look at Lenormand cards for your question as well. And I'll get to that once we've done this social reading, let's say a social reading. Anyhow, so I sat down, and me and my cards have a deal that whenever I shuffle them, whenever I do a reading, I have a contract with my deck that I will read the cards and they will give me the cards. Their job is to be shuffled and to present themselves. My job is to read what they present to me. And I have an agreement with my deck, a sacred contract, a understanding, a long friendship, a big relationship, tryst with my decks, and particularly the deck I was using, which was my original sort of Waite Smith deck. And I said, right, okay then. And my cards don't know. They don't seem to know. The oracular moment doesn't really care if I'm pretending or if I'm not caring about it or I'm doing a demonstration or anything. They fulfill their contract. They are tarot cards. They get shuffled and then they present themselves. So I did this reading for this girl and I laid out about 6 cards, and I just read them furiously. I just read them and there were loads of court cards. And I thought, even at the time, well, I had noticed that for younger people, you get a lot of court cards. And this is one of the reasons why it's good to learn how to read court cards confidently, fluently, in a range of situations, particularly for young people. Because social ties to younger people, far more than family and career and to some extent relationships, emotional ones, particularly mature relationships, are not of interest, but their friends are, their peers are, and the impact and influence of peers on children is far more than parents or education, by far. So court cards often come up in reading. Anyhow, I started reading the cards and I was like, so the guy that you're with, he is quite romantic. It was like the Knight of Cups or something in that position in the reading. And he is very thoughtful, but he's a little bit quiet and a little bit reserved. And I was looking at her boyfriend and sort of almost reading to him as well as to her, because obviously that was what the card was about. She'd asked about her relationship and a love reading. And I continued on with the other cards and said, now, the relationship that you have with your boyfriend is very uncertain, it seems. It's not like you see each other all of the time, for example. And I just was reading the cards and I was so focused on doing the reading. It was only, I think, the atmosphere that changed, that I suddenly looked up and I realized that the girl was staring at me with a very shocked expression on her face. Her boyfriend, who was a big lad, probably a local farming stock, and he was glowering at me as if he was ready to sort of kill me or something. And all of the other kids in the group, there were about 5 of them, were all looking to this lad who was stood almost to the back to one side of the other guy in the background. And he was looking as if he wanted the world to swallow him up. And it was obvious to me, and it had been obvious to everyone else, that the love reading was about her and this lad, not her and her boyfriend. And it was absolutely self-evident, and I just gulped, but of course I had to carry on reading. And I finished the reading and I sort of wound it up really quickly, and the kids moved off and this guy was pushing the other guy and the girl was trying to hold him back and the other kids were trying to get in their way and stuff like that. So it was a good example of all of the wrong things to do, all of the bad things to do, all of things we do not do with relationship readings. And it was only my excuse, my reason is because I was very wet. I've been wet and cold for several hours. And so in my list of rules for tarot card reading is obviously don't read when you're drunk, don't read when X, Y, and Z, but also don't read when you've been sat in the rain for several hours. So, the court cards are the kings, queens, knights, and pages. So, right, let me just quickly do this reading because I just want to do it for myself, and I won't get time outside of now to do this. So I'm going to use the Philosopher's Stone deck. I'll stick that there. And we're just going to shuffle these because I want to know and again, this is when we do a political reading or a reading for the collective, which is a phrase I detest on about 8 levels that I've counted so far. I feel it's far better that when big things are happening in the world, I want to know personally what I should be doing about it. What attitude can I take to understand and respond to, relate to the big things that are happening in the world? And obviously, if I'm doing the reading now, I'm asking it on our behalf of the 16 people who are watching live now in this oracular moment. So it is, what can we do? What do the cards advise best? It's the best attitude when there is a lot of political change, potential change. There's a lot of thresholds, trigger points, inflection points. That's the word I was looking for at the moment. And it sometimes feels like we're on the edge of a catastrophe cusp where any moment, but it's hard to tell when, everything is going to flip and collapse like a wave. So it's not a graph going up in a straight line. It's a catastrophe cusp, it's called, where something builds up like a stick, bending and bending and bending, and then all of a sudden it changes its state from being one stick into being 2 sticks, a very different state, a broken stick. So let's just have a quick look, whilst we've got time and opportunity, as to what the Philosopher's Stone has to say with 3 cards as to what it is the best thing we 13 can do. We now have a coven in the room. 13 can do with regard to our effort. So this is the bottom card, it is effort. So this is the effort that we need to make. Mastership. Thinking, which is nice because that's the cover card on the box itself. Mastership of thinking, master our own thinking about tension. So we need to master our thinking about tension. And this is the effort. There we go. It's literally pointing to what we need to do. We need the primary card or position is thinking. So it's not direct action. It's not, at the moment at least, or today, it is not protesting. It is not writing to politicians. It is not getting involved in social media arguments or discussions or anything other than thinking. It's saying for us, we need to have a mastership over our thinking. And if we take a look at the little white book about mastership, which is card 39, we have Apogee peak performance masterpiece, really. So it is about perfecting, it is about doing our best and making an art form and learning. Actually, this is the subject of the 3rd Anetheon lesson in the membership area, about mastering our thinking and existing in this state of tension, which the S also has as fission, separation and triumph. So it's when things come apart that there is actually a triumph in that there is something creative about that snapping point. So we need to master our thinking so that we can prepare for this inevitable breaking apart. So this doesn't bode well for today's politics, for sure. That there's going to be a tension between opposite sides, or even a literal breaking apart of things, maybe a piecemealing out of things, a separation out of ownership, maybe political ownership and so forth. Obviously, I'm reading into that card as to what events of today are with the summit with Trump and Putin that's happening as we speak. So there is a sense of mastering our own thinking and our own ability to exist with lots of other different thoughts and all of the different thoughts that are around us. We need to build of that. Can you see how this has been built into something like a monument to our history and things? This is built up of all of our thoughts and every individual's thoughts being mediated, and we have to do that in ourselves. We have to have mastership over our thinking in order to best exist in a period of tension. So that seems to suggest the best advice for us at the moment. Okay, I actually wanted to ask a question, not of the tarot, but of Google, as to, has driving got worse recently? Since COVID, I don't know if it's because I had a long period of being without a car, or whether I've just got old and grumpy in the last few years. But to me, and obviously I live in a tourist area, so the driving is often horrendous, abysmal during summer. But it seems to me that there's less consideration on the roads, and I've been in a lot of situations of late, sometimes several times in one journey, where I cannot believe how people are badly driving. It's as if they don't know. And obviously, if you're American, I do apologise for the whole roundabout situation we have going on here. But even people who are driving here and seem to be licensed to drive here don't seem to understand roundabouts. But that is a question I'll ask Google, not necessarily the tarot. Although if Google doesn't have a definitive answer, then I shall also ask the tarot. So I just wanted to go back then quickly to Azza. So Azza, if you're still with us, here is a 3-card tarot card reading, and I'm going to take the Wade Smith deck for this so that I can do it frictionlessly. So this is basically, I'm going to ask a question and I'm going to use 5 cards for this to look at how you can best develop your approach, your attitude, work on, concentrate on, focus on, amplify if you already do it, or stop doing certain things in order to improve your emotional, personal and romantic relationships. How about that for a question? So let me just finish shuffling them. They don't feel as if they are fully shuffled. You'll see sometimes the cards will actually just almost let them direct me and say, oh, you sure you want those? Oh, it's not sure. It definitely wants that, but now it's got to put those there. Oh, right, okay. Right, is that settled? Okay, and that one needs to go there. Right, okay, so this is what not to do. So what not to do, and this is to answer Az's question about relationships in general, is to turn your back on your current situation, your current emotional relationship and situation, and particularly not for someone else. This is sort of moving away from disappointments, and even if you don't know where you're going, you know you don't want to be in a current relationship or situation. So there's a feeling that you want to move on from that. It's been a wasted effort is one of the interpretations of this card. But this position in the 3 cards I'm going to lay down, 1, 2 and 3, is what not to do. So it's saying if that card had been there, totally different. But this first card is what not to do. So you are not to abandon your current situation, whatever that may be. What you are to do, though, is to recognize your own King of Wands nature. And the more you do that, the better your relationship will be in. So often in relationships, we have a lot of things going on. We have what's called transference, we have projection, we have the shadow, we have, most importantly, the anima and the animus, our own masculine and feminine sides, so-called, operating through the other person. And they, of course, have their masculine and feminine sides operating through us. Those are quite often shaped by our own parents. So I will bring my mother and father to the relationship, and the other person will bring their mother and father to the relationship. And of course, those people, as actual people in real life, have an anima and animus that was going on in their relationship as well, and also projection and all sorts of other things going on as well. So when a court card, and we can see a court card, it's the King of Wands in this case, it's about not just another person, like your hoped for relationship might be with a man who is strident, who is strong-willed, who knows what they want and where they're going, or it may be that you're in a current relationship with a man like that. But actually, in the way I read it, for this situation at least, it is about you developing your own will and your own ambition. So instead of being emotional and trying to move away to some illusionary better situation, you actually need to stand your ground and learn to express your own value, your own will, your own intention, and your own ambition, and to make that known and to sit by it and stand by it, be a bit fiery with it as well, if that makes sense. These are very opposite cards, and so the advice is very clear and distinct. What you can do in the middle, okay, so that is no surprise, is it? Is really develop the feminine side of that, but it is still saying you need to work on your own will, your own values, what is important to you, and making those preeminent in your life, bringing those to the front, like the cat is here at the front. And the cats just look after themselves. It's a secondary thing that they please their owner, or so-called owner, the person they share their house or property with, or their territory with. But the cat is that nature, it's that leonine nature of self first. But it is also that advice about putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. So there's a sense of not following through with emotional dissatisfaction, but more working on your own self-worth, your own self-value. And that is more likely to then attract a person to you who is far more suitable for you, whether that is someone you currently know or thinking about, or someone in your current environment. It's more likely to attract that sort of person to you, which will be a better relationship because they are being attracted to you, expressing yourself more fully, more authentically, and knowing both your male and female sides will help you relate to someone who recognizes that, who admires that, who responds to that, who acknowledges that and has perhaps done that themselves to some extent. And therefore you find a simpatico relationship with the right person. Now, in terms of the future, then you have actually, we're going to do that differently. That is going to go down there. I was going to put it there and I sort of went up there first. But we go with the oracular moment. And in this case, it is that the four of Pentacles is your resources in this. And this is a little bit like a mini Celtic cross. That you can save your time and energy and effort for some future point. You mustn't extend your time and effort. So here we're looking at the Pentacles. So we looked at the Wands in terms of ambition and value, the Cups as emotions, but also underneath that, I don't know if people were noting, but I was really talking more about attachment. And here we're talking about the Pentacles as resources, and our main resources are time, attention, and our physical health, and our presence, and our authenticity. Money comes out of those things. Money is just a token of time that's exchanged between us for the time we spend and the value we give other people's time. So they're really time tokens, but our actual resources are more to do with our self-worth, our value, our authenticity, our time, and our attention. Time is our most valuable resource of all. So you have to save time, concentrate your time on things that are close to you and not waste time, extend time, spend, give freely time to somebody else, because you have to work on yourself first. And then the King of Swords is the future situation, and so that is more likely to be your partner. That the partner that this will build into is more likely to attract someone who is cutting, rational, logical, clear thinking, is quite unemotional, maybe not even practical. The swords are sometimes a bit abstract and a bit, strange enough, away with the fairies, as we would say, even though that is more like a cups thing. But swords, and Aleister Crowley writes about the court cards very, very well in terms of their foibles and their weaknesses and things. And it's quite obvious when you read Aleister Crowley on the court cards that he likes certain sorts of people and despises other sorts of people. And that really comes across in his court cards, which is quite nice because you can clearly see it and then adjust and calibrate for that. Whereas some authors, you don't quite get what their attitude is, what their viewpoint, what their history is, what their relationships are like, how they understand psychology in general and so forth, and their biases and predilections and upbringing and everything else, and their projections most of all. So sometimes it's a bit difficult to read into their court cards because you don't know where they're tweaking it. Whereas with Crowley, you know. And that is why I like, there's a book called The Feminist Tarot, and I recommended it in one of my shorts last year. And I love that book because it is so clearly biased and to some extent one might even say prejudice, but it is really clear. It's in the writing, it's in the title of the book, and it makes it a really good book for interpretations. I use that book so much when I was learning and building on interpretations for everyday readings. The Knight of Pentacles was Crowley's father. I bet you're right with that. I'm pretty sure you're right. And there are some cards, court cards, where the contempt and derision just drips off the page. It's like a poisoned blade, and it's so beautifully written and so true. And we probably all know certain people like he is describing. So yeah, Crowley knew people. That was one of his great beast abilities, that he was able to understand people's weaknesses and strengths, and then to some extent either manipulate or take advantage of those things. Okay, so I hope that was a reasonable demonstration of a reading off the cuff, and particularly talking about how I personally go about reading for relationships and so forth. And the story was a antidote to that in terms of those are the things not to do for relationship readings. Make sense, everyone? Any questions about that, or any observations that people have from their own readings, relationship readings, and so forth? And I am quite curious as to whether there's a story behind meddling sheep, but I don't know if I dare ask. Okay, so Sherry, you've been buying books and getting interested in different topics, but your follow-through is lacking. Am I delusional, following my intuition, or distracting myself? So, shall we actually go to Crowley for that? Crowley will tell us, and Crowley will make it very clear what's what with that. So I'm going to use the Thoth deck for that, if that's okay. It's not very camera friendly to shuffle the deck, and even for me, it may not be obvious sometimes, but I'm quite large hands, and so it makes books look really small when I'm holding them on camera. But even I have difficulties with the Thoth deck, so I do have a mini Thoth deck somewhere, and did I put it on the table? It was about somewhere. Oh, it's down below, but I won't reach for that just at the moment. You can bear with some shuffling here. And yes, Start. I'll do your reading next. Yep. Because I'm going to move on to the Lenormand for that. We were discussing Crowley over that. Isn't Tony doing a good job behind the scenes, everyone? We've had no fallouts in the group. We've had no political arguments. We've had no... It might be just that you're all a good group of people, of course, and Tony's actually not having to do anything, which is a terrible thing. I'm not asking for people to give Tony work, by the way, by kicking off in the group. That is the last thing any of us need at the moment, as evidenced by the Philosopher's Stone cards. Right, okay, so this is, nothing has come up. Yeah, we perhaps need about 1,000 people in the stream to give you something to do. Let's have a look. So, who were we looking at? It was Sherry. Yes, that's right. So, about the follow through. Princess of Swords, the Chariot, and the High Priestess. Now, there's an interesting combo. So in this particular case, I didn't have a layout in mind. I just wanted to lay out 3 cards to see what they would say. So I'm going to take the Chariot first. Now, the Chariot, to me, with regard to following through, is very much, I was going to get a bit tricky and mystical there for a second, but I will bring it back down to something actually practical. The chariot is empty. Okay, the chariot within the Thoth Tarot is the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail is existence. And existence is a surface that is has nothing on the surface but is full of everything. And there's a sense here of the charioteer holding this spinning thing, but there's no movement. There's a paradox of thought here. And it's, in Waite's terminology, the chariot is the mind. And in fact, Waite actually says that the charioteer could approach the high priestess and ask for the scroll, the secret of the law, and the high priestess would not be able to answer him or give him an answer that he would understand. And really he's talking about the limitations of the mind. So really this is about, these two cards in particular, expectations. It is about you trying to fill your mind with things, with knowledge, with reading, with study, but really, where are you going with that? Where is that going to take you? And maybe you need to consider your grail, your holding, your understanding, which is what Bina is on the Tree of Life. It means understanding, to which this card has a connection. And there's a sense of, what are you trying to understand? So not what are you trying to learn, but what are you trying to understand? And maybe that's a different question. It should be. And this is where the High Priestess comes into, because she is the veil of understanding. And she is the light that we clothe reality with that is still a veil. So maybe you're trying to learn things as if that's going to tell you something about reality. And all knowledge is false, fake, illusionary. It arises out of a fictional division between ourselves and the world. I told you I was going to get a bit mystical. But as a result, the veil, and Crowley says this, he says that people end up becoming illuminated in the sense of they see the light of the veil and they think that that is it. They are gazing upon reality, the pure light of existence, but the light itself is the veil of existence, is what is arising from it. So this is why the High Priestess is deep intuition and things like that, is that level of understanding that is hard-coded into our spiritual DNA, into our pattern, into our arising, abiding relationship with the whole of reality. It's something we know to be true because it is self-evidently so. And ultimately that is existence itself, which is the grail in which everything is arising and happening. And we give it movement, but at the same time nothing is ever moving because it can't, because there's nowhere for it to move to or from, because it's everything. Whew. So really this is asking a big question, a sort of philosophical question about, yes, you're trying to follow through with things, but not getting anywhere, because to be honest, there's nowhere to go with that other than increasing your understanding of your relationship to existence. That makes sense? So at a practical level, think about what you're trying to understand philosophically in terms of your lived experience. What would make you content to have an understanding of, and then use that to direct your studies and to follow through as the Princess of Swords. And I'm just going to grab my Secrets of the Thoth Tarot book and look. So this is volume 3 on the court cards for the Princess of Swords. Where are we? Cups, then swords, court of wands. Sorry, swords backwards. So the Princess of Swords. Blah, 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 blah. Shadow, I Ching, everyday reading. It's a part of yourself. She represents, and this will be no surprise to you, Sherry, she represents the constant stream of thoughts that call for action, particularly to right our internal sense of justice. The princess can throw the baby out with the bathwater if she is not recognised, acknowledged and clearly argued out within oneself. So there's a sense of immediate thinking with the Princess of Swords, according to Crowley, particularly as an energy as well. It's this immediate thought acted upon. So there is a sense of trying to satisfy this immediacy of thinking, but that is not going to get you anywhere. A deeper understanding is required first, and then the thoughts are used as tools to deepen your understanding in your own experience with regard to your relationship to the world. Make sense? And that should be the thing that directs your studies, and you're more likely to follow through because you're seeking understanding at every step of the way, as opposed to some knowledge that you are trying to attain for some reason. Make sense? Okay, now a very quick reading to finish, but nonetheless an important one of, here we go, I'm going to use my Cyberpunk Lenormand for this, and I'm going to do a quick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 card reading for this, because we can read the Lenormand quite easily, and this is for Star. Yeah, there's a sort of selfishness with driving, isn't it? That seems to be what I've noticed. Maybe it's post-COVID. I still contest that it's not going to be for another 50 years that people really write and study how society changed post-COVID, particularly the lockdowns and so forth, and the long-term impact that had. I was reminded, I think it was a Chinese historian who was asked what the impact of the 50-year war was in Europe, whenever that was, like maybe, I'll guess, the 1200s, 1500s. And he turned around and he said, I don't know, it's a bit too early to tell. And I think the same thing is going to happen with COVID. There's going to be 50 years, 100 years before people really understand how it changed people, society in general. And I don't know if it's a bit grandiose to say that that might be explaining driving habits or bad driving habits, lack of consideration, change in the way people think about personal space and individual rights, that they had those sort of constraints. So now we are being more individual and stuff. It's an interesting subject, isn't it? Right, so what would make it possible to sell your house? Right, okay then, let's have a look at that then. Oh, okay, thank you for using Secrets of the Waitsmith Tarot. That's great. Oh yeah, Star Dancer as well. Yeah, the Veil is the Cave, definitely. Yeah, it's worth reading Crowley on the High Priestess and the Veil, and that makes a lot more sense out of some of his other spiritual and mystical writing, where he really adopts that whole concept as a sort of the ground of reality, that we are experiencing the experience, but not necessarily the reality, that separation from reality, apparent separation from reality, generates experience, and then we mistake that for reality. Okay, so what will make it possible to sell a house? And this is for Star Dancer, and we're going to run over by a couple of minutes just to finish this. So if anyone's got any last questions, ask them now, or you can drop them in the comments later if you're watching this later. Whoops. Oh, okay, right. Okay, we are. Well, there we go. Oh, right. Okay, so, and this has some extra cards in, so I'll quickly explain those if they come up, as they have done. Move this out of the way here. So, bridge, fountain, whip, messenger, heart, rose, the ways, the letter, and the font. Okay, so in the middle of this reading for star, we have the heart. Okay, and with the heart, we are really looking at the sort of heart of the matter, the emotional side of things. And so it may be that you have a particular emotional aspect to the house if you're trying to sell it, and maybe that needs resolving to some extent before you actually can, or it will make it possible to easily sell the house. That it's more of an emotional thing rather than necessarily a practical or financial or contractual or legal thing. So that is in the middle of the reading, and that really shouts out it's an emotional thing. Now, in the past, there has been, it's like a new thing, the messenger, it's like news that you have been given that you weren't expecting, and this is something that then has entered your life. It's not necessarily a fully planned out thing and so forth, that there is a sense of the messenger has arrived and now you have to, or you feel as if you have to act upon that. And it was something from outside of your expectations. The messenger is quite often a card of surprise and novelty as well. Usually the messenger in the original Lenormand is very much a bringer of bad news, because no one would really send a telegram to someone carried by a letter by a rider unless it was important and worth the money and the effort, and therefore it was usually bad news about someone passing away or something like that. So there is a sense of that not necessarily being a positive thing, always depending on its position in a reading and the question. Now, the rose is very much about finding a deeper meaning in something that is very material. So this rose is growing out of a Neil, I'll have to do that in the next session, or we can perhaps do it in the comments if I get time over the week. That's fine. Because we've already run over by a minute or a few. So so the rose then is breaking through, finding the meaning in something. So these three cards in the center of the reading, this middle line, this is what is pressing down on you. This is what you have control over. This is the situation as is. It's very much, it seems like it's been an immediate thing, but it's actually far more of a emotional decision that you're trying to make, or situation that you're trying to work through, that's present in the house itself, the property and its sale. But you have to find that there is a difference between your emotional side. The heart and the rose are very similar in that respect, that is not really caught, captured, held in a physicality, in a property or in a house. This is my Cyberpunk Lenormand deck. We still have. I think we still have some of these, and there's a keyword version as well. I'm with the keywords down it. I'm obviously using the one without the keywords in. So there is a sense here of releasing your emotional attachment from the property itself, or from any new property that you might want to move to, that your heart does not belong within the physical bricks and mortar of the property. Make sense? Then in terms of the, thanks Tony, in terms of what you have control over, decision making, letters, which is literally communication in writing about the sale of the house, and that could be marketing, promotion and advertising of the property, instructing estate agents, realtors, is that what they're called as well in the US, and so on. And the font is, in this case, you have control and should take control over information. The font here, particularly in the cyberpunk deck and in modern readings, is very much about where you get your information from. So don't trust a single font of knowledge. Go and find your font. You have to find a good, pure sense of source of information and knowledge that can advise you. So don't try and make the decision by yourself. I love this particular card out of all of them. I know you should have favourites, but it took me a while to get the Tokyo Junction and the little girl standing sort of quite lost with the crowd sort of ahead of her, to get this sense of the ways and the overwhelm that is a trope of cyberpunk, but also modern life as well. So, and to be true to the original meaning, because the original card would also be called the Crossroads, and that is one of the most famous crossroads in the world. So, you know, to me, personally, I'm quite proud of that, I have to say, because I managed to layer all the things I intended with the deck in. So it is about choosing your way, but before you commit to writing and to instructions, find the right font of knowledge that you can trust. Now, pressing down on you, you have the bridge, which could literally, in Lenormand, it can be quite literal. So things like a bridging loan, or renting somewhere or going back to live with parents or somebody whilst you rent out your own house, all of that sort of bridging positioning that isn't quite what you want to do, but it's a halfway house, if you'll pardon the pun, to that position. That is something that might be possible for you. The fountain is what flows from you, where you want to find freedom and energy and flow. So in terms of escaping, it's like your current property. And again, I don't know the context. Usually I have quite a discussion with someone and we read the cards together, with Lenormand in particular, that it's almost like it's solidified around you. It's become meaningful, historical, emotionally attached and so forth, but that is not where your flow is, and that is something that you can aim for. And the whip is about arguments and discussions. I'm afraid you are going to have, because this is pressing down on the other cards, arguments with other people, discussions, disagreements with other people, in order to whip this through into shape. And perhaps also that might be why you're avoiding pushing forwards with it, because you know that those disagreements are likely to happen, but they are inevitable in the situation. You can find your flow, though. There is a in Dune, when particularly in the film, I think it's in the second film, where the character talks about there is a narrow way through, and he makes like this knife gesture of there's a way through to the future that has this golden path, it's called in the books, and that is possible for you to find out of this situation, but you have to free yourself a little bit from the attachment to the physicality of the place and realize that you are not it could be that you have grown out of that particular phase or place as well, because the rose is actually breaking through what appears to be solid concrete, because nothing is really that solid in time. Okay, does that help? Does that assist? And in terms of watching that for the others as watching a reading, I hope you can see I'm trying to keep it quite literal to the cards. Like, this is a bridging loan. This is where you find your flow. Your heart is set. You can break through, because the living thing of life is not the same as the material thing of life. Don't commit yourself to anything in writing, because you need to find a proper font and release all of that. Because it's quite new, because the messenger has literally brought that situation to you. You've not really generated it yourself. It's been brought to you, and you might feel like the ways, but that is something that can be mitigated by this card on the right as well. I love Lenormand. I always have, and it's partly why we wanted to resurrect it a little bit in the sort of English-speaking market, and why we spent so long with it, because we just loved reading with it, and it made such a nice change to tarot as well. Loads of people criticised our first book, the first book in English published by a major publisher on Lenormand in the world, for being too tarot-y. I didn't think that at all. It was a bit of a lazy stab at us, because I really think I understand the difference between Lenormand and tarot. But we did explain a few things in terms of tarot, because we had to, because most of the audience, despite what some people wanted other people to believe at the time, particularly on the old tarot forums at the time, that people didn't know anything about Lenormand, so we used a bit of tarot terminology to bridge people across to Lenormand. At least now we can write, and when we do write, particularly in 7-day Lenormand, which I'd recommend if you want to get the keywords for these sorts of cards, we can make it very different to tarot now, because people have moved on. We in the trade, and Tali Goodwin and I call learning Lenormand, it's called a doorstep book. It's basically a book that opens a market, gets laid down at the door, everyone then walks all over it in order to get quickly into the room that it's opened up. So it's a doorstep book, and we're quite proud of that being a doorstep book. We don't have a doorstep book, but now we do, and that is Secrets of the Learning Lenormand is a good case, and perhaps you can think of doorstep books in other subjects that have sort of opened up a new way of thinking about something, and then everyone has just ignored it totally because they've been too busy reading and writing all of the books that then become popular because that subject has been opened up by the first one. Hello, Lady Justice. So we're just finishing our 9 until 10 o'clock slot. We've run over by a quarter of an hour, so welcome. Exactly, Stardance, as you're saying, the bridge and the whip would join through the fountain, and that's another way of being able to read these cards, by mitigating negative cards with some of the more positive ones as well. Mixed readings, that's excellent. Yeah, tossing a few Lenormand cards in. I tend to do that, as I've demonstrated sometimes in these lives, with the Philosopher's Stone. Sometimes I do it with the Psi cards, if I just want a quick yes and no after a more layered, convoluted tarot or Lenormand reading. I'll just use the Psi cards. So thank you, everyone. One last big shout out to Tony. This has been a good test of Tony's moderating powers. He's not gone mad with them, which was our main concern, that the power would immediately go to his head and he'd be absolutely sort of banning people left, right and centre and so forth. So thank you very much, Tony. Your work has been appreciated, and your reward will be in the next life, I am sure. So thanks a lot, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you back in the members only section one final time. This is our last call, absolutely last call. The Chariot of the Secret Dawn can be yours for the cost of postage. If you want to become a member, at a minimum of £4.99 GB sterling a month. You can cancel if you want after your first month. Hopefully we will have enough content to make it worth your while beyond your first month, but you will still receive the deck, because I have a good opportunity to prove tarot to YouTube, and I can do that with your help by being a member. So we have plenty of these decks. I'm actually going to order some more in order to fulfill our side of things. And there's a PDF as well with the history of the deck and so forth. But that offer closes on Sunday. This is our last count for that, our last call for that, because then we can go and start asking people about their addresses, work out the postage, get a payment request to you just for the postage, and we're posting from the US and UK only, so I'll be sending them from the UK, so it'll be the cost of sending that quite light box in a small package, so it won't be very much, and the deck is free just for the £4.99 of membership. That gives you all of the exclusive videos and everything else. Last call, last warning, this train is leaving to the Secret Dawn. To be honest, we may have another offer a bit later on, because we still have a lot of stock of other things, but we'll see how that goes. That's not decided yet. So this is the last call for this offer for membership. Thank you everyone so much for being here. And thank you for your courtesy. Thank you, Tony, again. And thank you for everyone who is wearing a red, green or yellow hat. That marks you as a member of the channel. I have started responding to all of the comments that have been out for the last week or so. You'll notice I replied to several comments, and I'm going to go back through the others over the weekend. Thanks a lot, everyone, because I like to consider them and answer you properly as well, because people have asked some really good questions out there. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care. Have a good weekend. And as ever, as we say, the worker is hidden in the workshop. Thank you.